Okay, today we're going to be talking about professional learning communities, more specifically about the collaboration part of professional learning communities, because that is a very important piece. But first I just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview about professional learning communities and how they work. According to Dufour and Eaker in the Professional Learning Community book, there are 6 components, key characteristics of professional learning communities. The first characteristic is shared mission, vision, and values. The second is collective inquiry. The third is collaborative teams, which is what we're going to be hitting on today. The fourth is action orientation and experimentation. The fifth is continuous improvement. And the sixth is results orientation. Having collaborative teams is very important in professional learning communities. In order for a professional learning community to be successful, you must have teams working together collaboratively. I can't stress the importance of that enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually use a model that's called Adaptive Schools, and they offer a cheat sheet. And each employee at Chilhowie Intermediate School will be receiving one of these cheat books, and it is called Adaptive Schools Seminars, a Desktop Guide. Now, when you start out, it's going to talk a little bit about being adaptive and why that's important when it comes to PLCs. You're wanting to change form and clarify your identity. So, why would you want to do that in a PLC? Well, one reason is because you have to realize that using more data does not lead to better predictions. You must also be able to know your students and your team, and you must be able to work collaboratively with them. That is one big important key in collaboration. If you don't have a good relationship with someone, it is very hard to work together with them as a team. So as we go along in our PLCs throughout this school year and we use this desktop guide, we're also going to be using it for norms of communicating with one another and building relationships and trust so that our PLCs can become very successful and we can get our students the help that they need where they are struggling academically. With Adaptive Schools, there are 3 focusing questions, and they are, who are we, which is something you work together in your team to figure out. Why are we doing this? Well, of course, our answer at the school level, why we are doing this, is because we want our students to succeed. We want every student to succeed. So we have to ask ourselves, why are we having these meetings? What students need more help than others? And how can we work together to make that happen so that every kid is successful at our school? Why are we doing this way? That's a big question too, because we need to look at the way that we do things, and we need to constructively critique one another, and we need to be able to take that constructive criticism. Because if you're working with a team and you don't have a good relationship, then you will not be able to take that constructive critique of what they're telling you and go back to your classroom and try to fix it. Every one of us come to the education field with a certain set of skills, and every one of us can improve on our skills by building relationships with others, because there are people in the building that are better at math or better at English, or they may be better at classroom management, or they may be better at identifying students who have specific needs. And we need to be working hand in hand with each of these people so that our PLCs are coming together successfully. There are ways of talking to people, and there are ways that you shouldn't talk to people. That's another part of building relationships in PLCs and building that trust component to truly be able to collaborate together. you have two types of talking points. You have what's called a dialogue, where there is the outcome is to understand what is going on and happening and to gain knowledge from understanding. And then you have what is called the discussion component. And in the discussion component, at the end of the discussion is where a decision is made. That is the outcome of that. In both of these, you must be willing to monitor yourself. You should not be talking over others while they're talking. You must have etiquette. You cannot play on your phone. You cannot be distracted. In order for a PLC to be successful, you must be totally focused and working in your group. You also, once again, that's where that relationship, building relationships and trust is very important. Because the more trust and the better relationship you have with those people in your team during your PLC, the more focused and the better outcome you're going to have for those students. There's going to be 7 norms of our collaboration piece. And that, of course, is once again in these adaptive schools. In your desktop guide that you will be receiving during our first PLC of the year in a couple of weeks. The 7 norms of collaboration is pausing. You need to pause and stop and think about what is being said by others before you try to initiate a conversation or speak up or out of turn. The second one is paraphrasing. You need to try to put in your own words what the other people in your team are saying and put it in a way that's understandable to you. The next is posing questions. It's important that every person in the PLC poses questions that need to be asked. Because if you're not asking the questions that need to be asked, we are not going to be successful in helping our students academically. The fourth one is putting your ideas on the table. Your ideas are very important to the team. No one is going to immediately shoot down your ideas. Like I said, each one of us comes with a different aspect and different training and different strengths into the education field. So it's very important that as a PLC team working collaboratively, that we put our ideas on the table and we talk about them and why we feel they are important. Number 5 is providing data. At every PLC meeting, you need to bring data about your students who are struggling and who need that extra help. Because the more data you can provide and the more data that shows the same information or closely related information about where that student is struggling and the areas, that is going to make it more clear on what can be done to help those students. The 5th thing is paying attention to self and others. It's very important when we're holding PLCs and we're collaborating together that you're paying attention to yourself. Are you conducting yourself appropriately? Are you doodling on paper and not paying attention to what's going on? Or are you focused and you're ready for that meeting and you are listening to your team members speak? It's very important that we do that because that is the only way that we can truly work together in a PLC and be successful. And the 7th one is presuming positive intentions. A lot of time educators come into the field and when things change, they don't like that change. I mean, I have heard several people throughout the years go, "Oh, we have to do this again. Oh my gosh, I am so tired of changing." Well, the field of education is all about change. Being an educator means that you're a lifelong learner and things are going to change. That's just the way it is. So in order to go into each meeting and get the best out of these PLC meetings, working collaboratively, we must go in with the notion that the outcome is going to be good, so we need to make this change in order for our students to achieve academically and be successful in life, which is our goal as educators. The To have a successful meeting, there are structures when collaboration comes into play. And so I'm going to talk a minute for those structures. You need to decide on decision making. You need to have, as a team, sit down, collaborate, write up some type of rubric that tells how you're going to decide, just like you would for your students, how in your meetings you're going to decide on what's going to be done. Because if everyone in the team's throwing out ideas, we can only take a couple of those ideas and actually apply them over a long period of time to see what is successful and what is happening. So you develop one process at a time, because let's say you bring new educators in, or you have educators who have been in the system for 30 plus years. Well, the 30 plus year educators, the veteran teachers, they're normally really tired and not susceptible to change, whereas your new teachers that come in are willing to do anything. You want to find kind of a happy medium. So you want one process at a time. You don't want to overwhelm people, because when people get overwhelmed, the outcome is not going to be what we are wanting. You need a balance of participation. Everyone needs to participate. The PLC is a team, and we must work together. There comes in that collaboration part again. And you want to engage in cognitive conflict. It's okay to disagree with someone, but your tone and attitude sets, again, that relationship with them. If you look at your team member and you say, "Oh my gosh, that is the stupidest idea ever," well, that is very inappropriate, because you're talking down to them and they're on the same level you are. So if you don't like an idea they have, then you need to find a nice way to communicate why you don't like that idea. Don't just throw out you don't like it because it's too much work, because that's not the way it is. That's not the way it's going to work. The biggest thing is you need to remember to balance inquiry and advocacy. You need to focus on the meeting. Focus on what it's about. If we're talking about students and we're trying to improve their learning, you need to be focusing on students. Don't take the topic off track somewhere else where it doesn't belong. You need to say, an issue that is important to me is, and state your issue. I came to this conclusion because, and explain to the other team members so that we all understand what's happening. Your feelings are important, but once again, you can't go overboard, because you're destroying that relationship with your team members. So you need to say, I feel, however, about this, and this is why. The interpretation of the data is very important. That's something that must be brought up. Well, we noticed over the last 4 weeks that little Johnny has been struggling in the area of writing. And then as a team, you would come together and try to make a determination on what to do about little Johnny and how to fix that problem. You need to use perspectives. I'm seeing this from the viewpoint of the parent or the viewpoint of the child, and this is why. Because it's important that we understand why something is happening. The context. Several people would be affected if we could change the way that we're writing in our school, or the way that we're doing something. And then you want to use examples. I chose this method because it's shown to work here, or I've read about it here. But the relationship building is a really strong piece, so I want you to understand that PLCs are very important. PLCs are successful when they are used appropriately, and it takes the whole community of the school working together to be in a PLC. So I hope you all enjoy your year. Once again, this year we're going to focus on collaboration and building relationships with one another and trust.